Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the One of One Card Show. My name is Luke, and I am your host. And I swear, every single video I watch on the internet when it comes to cards lately, people keep saying almost all cards are doomed to drop in value. Is that really true? Well, in this week's episode, we're going to be taking a look at what I think might be the safest high-end trading cards from WWE to buy. So most wrestling trading cards are doomed to drop, right? I keep hearing that all the time. I keep hearing people say that they are, just trading cards in general. Most of them are just going to drop in value. What are some of the reasons? Oversupply and overprinting. Many modern cards are produced in such large numbers with so many parallels, which reduces the scarcity, right? So we can see over here, there's a Zelina Vega 2024 Prism in a green undercard. You can see a 2022 Prism WWE Brock Lesnar in a red, white, and blue Prism. And, you had to get that one graded, right? In a PSA 9. So we see a whole bunch of parallels. In addition to that, we see wrestler performance and reputation. So, no matter how good a wrestler is over the course of their career, their popularity in the collectible market may begin to fade over time. I mean, we can see, for example, we see X-Pac or Sean Waltman. He was one of the most over and most popular WWE superstars in the late 90s during the Attitude Era, one of the hottest times in the history of WWE, but he's not necessarily, remembered as much as some of the other wrestlers from that time period, despite the fact that he was one of the biggest, wrestlers during that time. So, yeah, that might be an issue as well. So I am no financial advisor. I'm gonna be flat out honest with you on that. But let's identify some of the high-end WWE trading cards that have the greatest chance to hold their value long term. Now, obviously, in this episode, we're gonna look at, very high-end WWE cards. And as a note, we might have to do a low-end version at a later date because, again, we want to think of cards that are going to hold their value and hopefully go up over time. So we're going to start with high graded, low population, early cards from wrestlers in rookie cards. For example, over here, we see a 2002 Fleer WWE Royal Rumble John Cena card. Now, the Fleer Royal Rumble set from 2002, this was such an iconic set, not because it was necessarily the best looking card set, but because it had so many big name rookies like John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar, and a John Cena card. And as we see over here, we can see the PSA pop count. PSA 9 sold for $311 in October of 2025. This and a PSA 10 sold for 2,100 in June of 2025. If we look over here, there's only 122 PSA 9s in existence. Now, you might be saying to yourself, that's a good amount, which it is a good amount. But for someone who is at the level of John Cena, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, for John Cena's like definitive rookie card, that's a very, very low pop count. PSA 10, only 10 of those cards exist. Um, I mean, 12 of those cards exist. You would have to assume that a card like this is going to retain its value over time. Now, if we go back in time to 1985, we see an example of an early card from Hulk Hogan. This is not his first card. We did a whole video about that a couple months ago. But this is, one of his early WWF WWE cards. His 1985 Topps card. There's a whole bunch of these cards graded, almost 3,000 copies graded. But once you start getting, creeping into the higher end for grades, like a PSA 9, 210 exists, PSA 10, 15 of those exist, you start to see the value of these things going up. Now, obviously, Hulk Hogan passed away in July of 2025, and that was definitely the peak of his market. If you sold a Hulk Hogan card or bought a Hulk Hogan card, you were paying a premium, as we could see. A PSA 9 sold for almost $1,500 in July July, whereas it is, steadily dropped down in value to about $700 in October 2025. But if you were one of those individuals buying a PSA 10, you're looking at close to $20,000 because this is one that is obviously very condition sensitive. It's from the 80s. You're going to see a whole lot of cards, that are off-centered and some, surface issues and so on. But I think those cards are going to maintain their value and, be a safe purchase in the long run. Now, next up, we have ultra rare case hits. Panini had the WWE license from 2022 to 2024. And if there's one thing that they brought about was some huge case hits over the course of those years. And one of the biggest case hits over that time period was definitely the Kaboom. And that's one of the iconic cards from the WWE time period with Panini, but it's just an iconic card anyways as a case hit. And we see an Alexa Bliss, who's obviously one of the most popular WWE superstars, a Kaboom from August of 2024 and in a PSA 10, it sold for $900. So and then you flash forward about 1 year later to August 2025, that same card graded in a PSA 10, $1,950. So in 1 year, that card has gone up quite a bit. Now, we have to say, it's not a one of one, but it's a card that is just so sought after. So we can see over here Finn Balor, who I would probably say in this the Kaboom set from 2023 Revolution. Finn Balor is probably one of the weaker names of an individual who did have a Kaboom. And again, Finn Balor's not a weak name, and I'm saying compared to the rest of the superstars who had one. I mean, you're looking at individuals like Hulk Hogan having Kaboom, John Cena, Randy Orton, all those big names. Finn Balor was one of the weaker ones. You can even see him in November 2024, PSA 10 of his Kaboom sold for $310. Flash forward to less than a year later in August 2025, $710. There's an enormous trend going on here with Kaboom, and we definitely see it with these cards. Now, Color Blast from 2022 through 2024 Prism. Color Blast is something that is definitely going to be maintaining its value long term. A 2024 Prism Color Blast. Now, this is the third year Prism. It's the first time in which we're seeing vertical prisms because they were horizontal in both 2022 and 2023. Roman Reigns Color Blast going for over $2,000. $2,250 in August 2025. Now, that's with a PSA 10 pop count of 24. Now, obviously, these things grade very, very well. But yeah, 24 of them and it's still going for over $2,000. Now, another example, we have Bianca Belair. Now, Bianca Belair having a 2022 Color Blast. In April of 2024, her PSA 10 version, which is actually a Pop 3, it makes me really regret not getting one, ended up selling for $490 in April 2024. But then you flash forward to July 2025, just a few months ago, you have a PSA 9 version, which there's 11 of them in the Pop PSA Pop count, going for $390. Now, these are case hits here. You can clearly sell that at some point in time, PSA 9s might be catching up to what the PSA 10 sold for in April of 2024. I think it's very, very possible at some point in the near future. Now, if we want to think of a card that's going to be retaining its value over time, it is a Superfractor one of one. It's the only one in existence of that respective set or insert or case hit. And we can see it over here when it comes to a card. This is a 2025 Topps Chrome Cactus Jack insert. Um, and we have Shayna Baszler in the famed Phantoms insert selling for $550 in September of 2025. Now Shayna Baszler was a well-respected wrestler, put on a whole lot of great matches, won several titles in WWE, never a world champion in WWE, but had like the NXT title, tag titles, but never someone who was necessarily the biggest name. Did end up facing off against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 36, but having a one of one Superfractor insert going for $550. We can clearly see over here that if it's a one of one, there's going to be people chasing after it because it is the only one that exists. And now we have, for example, the 1985 design insert from the 2025 Topps Chrome WWE. We have two wrestlers over here who were, big names when they were active in the 1970s, 80s, and, part of the 90s if you're Greg the Hammer Valentine, at the WCW and WWE and so on. But we see over here these cards, even in a one of one for wrestlers who don't necessarily carry the, we'll say, the S tier or A tier gravitas that some of the Hulk Hogan's or Ultimate Warriors carry. They're still having Superfractors in 2025 going for $400 and $475 respectively. So again, if it's a one of one, people might be just seeking out that 1985 design set. People might be seeking out the best Greg the Hammer Valentine or Superstar Billy Graham card of that respective year. And as a result, they're going to be paying that sort of premium. So if you're searching for one of ones, it might not always matter who it is. People want it because it's rare and exclusive. Another example over here, an Ava card from the most recent 2025 Topps Finest WWE set in the rare Superfractor one of one. She's the, a daughter of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. She is, the NXT general manager. Her card selling in a Superfractor one of one in the rare version, $350. Now, obviously, not everybody can get a one of one. They go for quite a bit of money. So maybe you're saying to yourself, I want to go a little bit lower on the tier of things. People might be seeking out the Topps Red Refractors, which are normally, now sometimes not, but normally out of five. Sometimes we even saw in Finest, they had a couple out of three, and then a couple years earlier, you might have seen them out of 25 as well, depending upon the respective set. Um, so we have over here the we have the 2020 Topps Chrome WWE. We see a card from The Rock in a red refractor out of five, going for $1,210 in June of 2025 in a PSA 9. That's not necessarily even like the best photo of The Rock, but it is just a very iconic card set. So that might be what has driven it up quite a bit more. If we then take a look at Roman Reigns with a great visual from 2021 Finest, and I think that looks a pretty cool design in the background with all like the shards and the geometric shapes. That red refractor out of five going in a PSA 10 for $1,000 in January of 2004. So now we flash forward to 2025. We can see a Liv Morgan out of five with a great photo, her holding the world title, going for $335 in March of 2025. So red refractors definitely carry a premium. Now, if we move on to the Panini era of WWE, we know that the black Prism one of ones and the black finite one of ones from the Prism set are what people are going to be seeking. If we see a 2022 Panini Prism, which is the rookie card for Aoife Valkyrie, also known as Lyra Valkyria, going for $1,850 in May of 2024. And that is a card that I would say, especially with Lyra seemingly, moving in the upper mid card status and beyond, holding the Intercontinental title for quite a bit in 2025, you would have to assume that that card is definitely going to be commanding a premium over time, especially as she possibly gets a world title chance or world title down the line in the foreseeable future. And we see over here a wrestler who I think has such great potential, but for some reason, WWE just doesn't want to push him at the level that he probably deserves. We have Otis. This was somebody who won the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2020 and that had a really weird feud with The Miz and John Morrison over it. Um, he, of all people, has a black prism that went for almost $1,000 in April of 2023. He's someone who's very, very talented, but we could see over here, it doesn't really matter if, he at this point in time hasn't been featured a whole lot on WWE TV. His cards are still selling for quite a bit of money. Another one, we have AJ Styles, who in the within the next couple days is going to be fighting and hopefully beating up John Cena in Perth, Australia, at Crown Jewel. We have AJ Styles with a Black Prism one of one from 2024 going for almost $1,500, $1,410 in October 2024. So we know these are sought after. There's only 3 years of Prism. And as a result, the Black Prism one of one has become probably the iconic card from that set. But some people obviously debate with the some wrestlers having a Black Prism one of one. We see Indy Hartwell, who's no longer even with WWE. Indy Hartwell has been making rounds on the independent scene, making her waves also in TNA Impact Wrestling as well, having a card going in a one of one in September 2024 for almost $800, $786. And we also have a black finite, which appeared only for 1 year in 2024. And this is a card that what's the better card, the Black Prism one of one or the Black Finite one of one? Well, Roman Reigns had a card sell for almost $10,000 at $9,000 in September of 2024. So we have over here his card, Cody Rhodes cards in the Black Finite going for huge, huge amounts of money. So those are absolutely commanding a premium as well. And I would say no matter what the wrestler is for the most part, since it is the one of one in only the 1 year that they actually had that card is definitely going to be something people are going to be seeking out over time. Now, Select is definitely one of those cards that people are going to be going for. And if there's one thing I like about Select, it is definitely the ring side, especially in the Black Prism. So the Black Prism one of ones in Select are going to be something people go after. And most recently, we saw a Rhea Ripley card in the ring side selling for $5,000 in August 2025. I know there were definitely some shenanigans going on when it came to the sale because I think, someone with zero feedback bid close to $9,000 for it on eBay, but it ended up selling afterwards for about $5,000 in the Black Prism one of one. We can also see I really really like this specific card over here. This is definitely maybe my favorite design from 2023 Select, and that it would be the Becky Lynch Black one of one, and that sold for $1,600 in June of 2024. Great design, one of the best Becky Lynch photos I think from the Select era, and quite possibly my favorite card from the Select era of Becky Lynch cards. Now, in 2024, Panini ditched the Black Prism one of one and instead ended up going with the gold vinyl one of one. Now, I will say I personally prefer the Black Prism one of one, especially when it comes to the continuity of it. But they did their different things for the final year of Select, and they went with the gold vinyl. And you can see over here the Sandman. Now, the Sandman is definitely somebody who has a very iconic time and run in ECW and also had some appearances in WWE as well. But someone like the Sandman, having a PSA 10 in Select in the ringside going for almost $500 in August of 2025. Again, he's somebody who is, a very, very famous wrestler over the course of the last 30 plus years. But he's someone who's not necessarily the biggest name in the world, but you could tell over here it's a great looking design, great looking card. That's going to command presence in the long run, I think. Now, if we're not going to be going after the one of ones and the gold vinyls, the black prisms, we should know that the true gold out of tens. I'm not really thinking about the gold shimmers that are out of three, the out of fives in the green, none of that stuff. I don't think that they're going to be, maintaining their values at the same level as the true golds out of 10. And we see over here in a 2023 Rock card gold prism out of 10 going for almost $2,000 in August of 2023. Now, We have one of the bigger cards from Roman Reigns. If you weren't going to fork over about $40,000 for the Black Prism 1 of 1 or more, we have the Gold Prism out of 10 going in a PSA 9 for almost a little over $3,000, $3,360. Again, gold prisms are going to be commanding their huge amounts. I keep hearing people try to compare the gold prisms out of 10 to like the precious metal gems of the late 90s, when they had like the greens that were out of 10, and the others were the other parts of the 100 were, there were 90s of the reds or the rubies. I hear people talking about that in the same way as the gold out of 10s, especially since Panini's, has lost their license for WWE, but is also losing their license for basketball and eventually football as well. So we'll see if those gold out of 10s will command the same level of premiums that, precious metal gems and stuff from the late 90s did for, basketball and other sports. Um, we see over here like Kevin Nash. Now, Kevin Nash is a multiple time world champion. He was one of the founding fathers of the NWO. He is somebody who has definitely made a mark on WWE, but again, he's not necessarily that, S tier level wrestler. But he had just, in October of 2025, he had a PSA 10 version of his gold prism going for over $1,000 in auction. Again, it's clearly evident to me that if a Kevin Nash gold out of 10 is going for, over $1,000, it's telling me that people are seeking these cards out. And next up, we have the 2022 Select Ringside Gold from Hulk Hogan. Now, this is obviously, again, one of my favorite card designs ever. And we are seeing that a legend like Hulk Hogan, years after he was in WWE, having a card from 2022 selling for over $1,000, $1,020, and a Select Gold Ringside selling in August of 2024. In addition to that, we have John Cena. Now, John Cena's cards have definitely been commanding their premium in the last year since he has announced his retirement in WWE over the course of 2025. And we see in October of 2025 a 2022 gold prism select selling for $660 in a pretty cool photo of his as well, with quite a neat t-shirt too. Now, we see big autographs of significance going to be cards that will hold their value, I would say, over a long-term period of time. And one example is Charlotte Flair, who one might say is a rather undervalued WWE superstar, despite the fact that she, still sells very, very well, and obviously is one of the most prestigious WWE superstars in the history of the business. And yet, we want to make sure we are aware that big cards of like these go for quite a bit of money and will likely maintain their value. So we could see a Charlotte Flair card. It's the 2015 Topps Chrome set, which is such an iconic set. It's an NXT, a Superfractor 1 of 1 auto in a mint 9 with a 10 auto with the Woo inscription. Now, this is a card that I would say will definitely command a premium because it's one of her greatest cards of all time. Now, we see over here in 2025, flash forward to 10 years later to WWE having their license again, 2025 Topps Chrome, $5,200 plus for a Liv Morgan Marks of Champions Superfractor 1 of 1 auto card with the Watch Me, with the heart inscription in it as well. So we can see that a card like this is probably going to hold its value because people will be seeking it out, especially with it being 1 of 1 and having that inscription. But not every single one of these cards is a big autograph. It's some of them are just not 1 of 1s, and this is a big example of one. This is a Roman Reigns Immaculate Milestones card from 2022 Immaculate Panini, selling for $1,540 in September of 2025. Now, this is a card over here that when it first started selling, it was going for like, $400, $500, but it over the course of the last few years has jumped up dramatically. This is one of the bigger growth cards in WWE. I think it's, a really cool photo. It's definitely showing him walking down the aisle with his Universal title that he had for so many years. And it's definitely something that, Roman Reigns fans and wrestling fans alike are, gravitating towards this card in particular. In addition to that, we see some of the, like the big premium memorabilia auto cards of like Gunther, for example, with the Ring General inscription. This sold for $3,183 in June of 2024. So again, Gunther holding his Intercontinental title here, having it around his waist. That's definitely a card that, people are, gearing to. It's got, a pretty nice looking patch as well. The better the patch, the more money a card like that might be going for. And we also see in 2022 Immaculate another really strong photo. Again, if there's one thing that we're starting to see from Panini is that Panini had chosen some wonderful photos for their cards. It's definitely something that Topps could keep an eye out on doing. And we see over here Stone Cold Steve Austin all-time greats insert in a gold out of 10. That's a card that sold for $2,000 when Immaculate initially came out around February 2023. So now we want to think of rare autographs. Some wrestlers sign basically every single thing that has been put forth for them to sign. I'm thinking of even some big names like Undertaker's been signing a lot of cards recently in the last few years. Stone Cold Steve Austin's been signing a lot recently. But if there's one wrestler who does not sign a lot, it is The Rock. The Rock does not have a lot of autographs over the course of his career in WWE sets. He signed a card in 1998. It's the WWF Wrestling Superstars autograph. This is a card that, depending upon its grade and depending upon its autograph, can command a huge price. Now, this is a card right here on the right. You can see it's a PSA 9, PSA 7 near mint with a 9 auto. That autograph is just about as good as you can get in this card. And the grade itself is also pretty good too. This is a card that's very prone to chipping. It's very condition sensitive. I really like the photo. It's an action shot of The Rock during the Attitude Era with the Raw's War sign in the back. I think that card is something that will be a rather safe bet in the long term. One thing that you want to be on the lookout for is that, as we had mentioned, the autographs in these cards vary tremendously. While the card in the 9 auto on the right looks amazing, in my opinion, the card in the center that I have right here immediately next to me, that autograph looks really, really bad. So the autographs, the weaker autographs, I would probably avoid. Obviously, it's still an autograph from The Rock, but in my opinion, if you want as safe of a buy as one could get, you're probably going to want to be looking at the ones with the better autographs. Now, beginning in 2025, The Rock started to have autographs appearing in the Topps sets. Now, we want to be aware that he did sign some products in Leaf as Dwayne Johnson, but The Rock is starting to appear again in Topps sets with autographs. And as a result, he does have some cards that are commanding a premium as well. Probably his biggest card of 2025 is the Final Boss insert auto or case hit auto, depending upon how you want to view it. It does have a one of one Superfractor that probably sold for high 5 figures. But if you want to go a little bit lower, they do have, the red refractor and a black refractor out of 10 that sold for 4,500 in September of 2025. I think that's a really, really cool autograph. I think it's a really cool photo. It's one of probably, the best cards of 2025 for wrestling this year. Now, If we're thinking of one specific set that is probably going to hold its value and probably going to be one of the more definitive sets of the last couple of years, it's got to be 2024 Panini Flawless WWE. And that's because it's the only year that that card set came out. And I will be the first to admit that I don't have any of the flawless cards. It's definitely cards that I'm on the lookout for sure. But I own zero flawless cards. But I will be the first to admit this is a card set that is probably going to be a big, safe buy in the long term, especially the higher end cards. Like, look at this Cody Rhodes WrestleMania Autographs Platinum 1 of 1 card, going for $10,500 in December 2024. But what a card to commemorate one of the biggest moments in the entire history of wrestling, entire history of WrestleMania, of him defeating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40 in one of the biggest matches of all time. What an unbelievable match, and what an unbelievable card to commemorate that event. In addition, we have the Legends Diamond Encased Platinum 1 of 1 cards. This is a card of The Rock selling in the Platinum 1 of 1 for $7,108 back in February 2025. I think that those Diamond Encased cards will hold their value in the long term, especially the Platinum 1 of 1s, as well as the Gold out of 10s. Now, gold out of 10s in the flawless, I think, if the platinum 1 of 1 is going to be holding their value the best, I think that the gold out of 10s will hold their value the second best, even though it is not the lowest parallel outside of the platinum 1 of 1. I think the golds look the best. Now, there's some exceptions like purple or the amethyst, I believe it is, of with the Undertaker, for example, looks good, but I think just the gold out of 10 is kind of just the standard in terms of class, in terms of how good it looks. We see a Rhea Ripley patch gold auto going for 1,358 in July 2025, whereas a John Cena Star Swatch signature is going for $1,175 in January 2025. I think these are just going to be steady cards that are going to just maintain their value in the long run. Um, and in addition to that, we can't forget about the diamond logo gems. Now, some of these diamond logo gems, they're all platinum 1 of 1s, but some of them have like the SmackDown or Raw logos. Some of them have the WWE logos, and some of them have the wrestler specific logos. I think that these are just really cool in terms of how they are constructed with the diamonds all throughout the respective card, and just a whole bunch of the platinum foiling all around that card to really stand out. And that's a Tiffany Stratton that sold for almost $5,000 back in February of 2025. So, some of my takeaways of looking at these, we have to understand that the more expensive something is obviously we have to understand that these are going to be risky buys. If you're spending 4 figures, sometimes even 5 figures on a wrestling card, we have to understand that there might be a little bit of risk here. Higher cost also does not always translate into a better looking cards. There are some cards that, not necessarily on this list because I try to pick out cards that I think were pretty good looking, but there are some cards that are selling for huge amounts of money that I don't even think they're that good looking. I've gone into detail about that before, particularly some of the Cactus Jack cards I don't think are all that special. And not everyone has to or needs to view card collecting in the sense of what will grow in the long term. But, if you're buying a card, if you're buying a card for a couple $100s, if you're buying a card for, over $1,000 or even, more into the 5 figures and beyond, obviously you just don't want to see that card go down in price. I don't think anybody wants to necessarily lose money, but we also have to understand here that some of these cards, if you do want to buy it, you might lose some money if you all want to buy the rare card out there. You have to just understand that and I guess accept that. So I want to know which card on here would you say is the safest buy out of all of these? Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, the 1 of 1 Card Show, if you're watching it right now, and also check out my Instagram channel as well, the 1 of 1 Card channel on Instagram. Everybody, you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode.